So with this song, I really want to point out the message that's kind of coming through the chorus. The chorus of the song says the lines, "It's true what they say, I'm gonna die someday. Why am I holding on?" Well, this is the last version of the chorus, so we're at the end of the song. This is the last version of the chorus. "Why am I holding on to all this weight? You know, I really thought that there'd be power in thinking half of y'all was just born fools. Thought I was gathering oats for my horses. I was getting by whipping my mules." I think Wells is really talking about the separation that is so encouraged in today's political system. And we see he's talking about it as a detriment on himself as an individual and not as a detriment on society as a whole, which I think it's fair to say there are plenty of other songs that Jesse Wells has released that do talk about I think it's fair to say that there are a lot of Jesse Wells songs that do speak to the harm that comes from separation on a community and political and just like broader sphere. But here he really brings it down to his own kind of individual level, and we see how Wells is talking about, I thought that I was smart in thinking that you guys were just dumb, and then just writing off everyone's opinion. And then he says the lines, "Thought I was gathering oats for my horses. I was getting by whipping my mules." The quality change in those two lines, I think, is so to what Wells is really trying to say. He thought he was doing all of the right things. He thought he was going about everything the right way. And he thought that just writing off this entire side and just taking out everyone else's opinion was the right way of going about things. But the degree of separation between oats for horses and whipping mules is crazy, especially when we put it in context of like history and how those things sort of represented different classes and talking points about mules in peasant lands and then horses in royalty, and we could talk all day about that. But this quality difference really speaks to me in a way that I think Wells is telling them, hey, learn this lesson that I'm teaching you. Don't write off everyone in the past, and don't write off everyone on the other side. Don't turn dumb. Don't whip your mules. I think Wells is telling us not to whip our own mules in this kind of sense. He's allowing us to learn this lesson from him instead of from personal experience. And so that is sort of why I wanted to put this book in conversation with M Archive. M Archive has a real focus on the future while also focusing on putting one foot in front of the other. I think having these two things simultaneously happens in looking to the future while putting one foot in front of the other, I think is something that the author of M Archive and Jesse Wells both do really well. We see the hope for the future in M Archive while also sort of bringing in these different polyvocal sort of voices. And I think polyvocality is something that we should talk about here with Wells as well. We have at least 3 different versions of Wells in this song. We have a religious Wells who is contemplating his own existence. We have I think we have an everyday Wells in the lines, "So I'm singing this song about loving." And then we have a bit of an intellectual Wells who is sort of calling out all of these voices are sort of starting to call out each other in the song. Like the intellectual will call out the everyday, and then the religious calls out the intellectual, and I think all of these sort of things are all talking to each other, which happens again in M Archive. not only do Wells and Pauline Gumbs sort of talk polyvocally in a very similar way, both of them call out these harsh reality checks that sort of come with war. Less so maybe in Horses. We see it mostly in the first few lines when he's talking about going to places that we quietly ignore, and the places we go and bomb is the third and fourth lines of the song. And this is a certain reality of war that I think Pauline Gumbs doesn't talk about, because Gumbs is talking more on the individual level. But really, in both of these works, both authors are reminding readers about why things are the way they are. And I think too, in this poem and this poem, all of these sources are talking about the same issues, but they're all talking about them in different spices. Like imagine I've got spices coming out of my fingers right now. It's all different flavors of the same overarching issue. And that's something that I really wanted to point out, because I think in this sort of moment of docupoetics, Jesse Wells is really doing the same work that the docupoetics that we've studied